So congratulations to those who entered the Opportunity Quest competition this year. That deadline was yesterday, and I understand they had several entries, and we expect that there'll be great entries. I've had several students talk to me about their entry, and I was very pleased. Great ideas, some very innovative ideas. I also have some other good news for you. If you missed that deadline, there is another Opportunity Quest event, and if you go into Canvas, I just about a half an hour ago or so posted an announcement for this class. You should see the announcement there. It's called the Opportunity Quest Audience Choice event, I think, or something like that. What that means is that even if you didn't enter the regular Opportunity Quest, you can still enter your business idea in this one. Now, this one's a little bit more simple. You just sign up and say, I want to be part of it. They'll only take the first 10 people that register. So if you're interested in that, you want to look at those announcements and you want to register. Here's how it'll work. At the Greenwood Student Center, next Wednesday evening, you'll have a table if you're one of the presenters. You'll come with your idea. You'll stand at your table. All the rest of you will come and get punch and cookies. And as you walk through to get punch and cookies, you'll be talking to the people about their ideas. And you'll have a little card, and you'll mark your favorites. And the favorite will win $100. So it takes about 20 seconds to register, and it'll take you a couple hours to present your idea to a bunch of other people, have a lot of fun doing it, and chances are really good of winning that since we're only taking 10 entries. So that'll be a really fun little audience choice idea. For those of you that are entering that are in the 2 credit hour section of this class, you already have several great ideas because you submit one every week. So I'd jump on that if I were you. It's a great opportunity. Without any further ado, then, it is my privilege to introduce today's guest presenter, Mr. David Wright. He is the CEO and co-founder of iServe, which is a leading e-commerce technology company providing both brand protection and brand growth by leveraging world-class analytics. What is that? He'll be telling you all about it in a few minutes. He's generously agreed to come today and share part of his day introducing this company to you and the challenges and the opportunities it's encountered and the adventures of entrepreneurship along the way. He leads all 3 divisions of iServe: brand protection and MAP compliance, international e-commerce, and digital advertising. He's led the strategy and execution of this company to go from just under $1 million per year to over $100 million per year in revenue. It's recognized as one of the largest marketplace sellers and is clearly one of the fastest growing. David was also served as the president of the board members of the Utah Oracle Users Group. He graduated in the top 1% of the Marriott School of Business at Brigham Young University with 2 degrees, one in accounting and one in information systems. He has 6 children, loves running, and enjoys the outdoors. Please welcome Mr. David Wright.
All right, let's see if this is working here. First order of business is Heber Allen here. Heber. Heber and I worked together for years, so happy to be here. Heber is the one who extended the invite, or else I never speak types of. Thanks for having me, guys. So all of this group, I guess, is an entrepreneur class. How many of you have ever tried any business? You guys have actually started a business of some sort at all? Wow, that's actually. All right, what were they? Anyone want to share? Cleaning business. Did it work? Personal training? Look like you could do good at that. All right. How many of you hope to someday start a business and then retire when you're like 35 or whatever? You did not raise your hand, you're crazy, right? So I think, and I'll just share my experiences. We've had quite a few bumps and bruises, and in the end, we've turned out to, it's been super successful, at least the way we look at it. And so we'll share some of our thoughts there, and hopefully it's of use to you guys. And if you guys have any questions, just in general, and And I'm going to spend the last part just talking about, some things I think, if I would have done things differently when I started out in college, when I was your age, what would I have focused on a little bit more and a little bit less? We'll share some of those thoughts as well. So first off, I'll give you a little background. And Melanie hates this, but my partner and co-founder is also here. I'm going to make her stand up just type stuff here. She did most of the heavy lifting in the beginning, so I made her come along with me. And we are also now engaged. Pretty cool. So that's the rare cases where partnerships work, Most times it seems like when you're, all the horror stories you hear about partnerships, I'm going to talk a little bit about that. Okay, we started iServe in 2013, and I'll just walk you through the story. Mel and I had a real estate company before this, and we, have always been somewhat money motivated, right? You guys money motivated? Sometimes it's hard to admit that. You're like, I don't really want to say I'm money motivated, but at the end of the day, I am. I don't know if you guys are, but at the end of the day, it turns out I am. And so we started iServe in 2013, and the impetus to starting it was I was sitting there talking with my cousin who was on food stamps, and he said I sold $2 million worth of headbands on Amazon. I was like, wait, aren't you on food stamps? He's like, I know. Now I'm a millionaire. Like, selling what again? And his wife developed these little headbands, and they were super light, and she's a good, she's great at art and all that jazz. And he put them out on Amazon, and he knew how to drive a lot of the technology, and lo and behold, he brought his little brand, and he sold $2 million on Amazon. And I was like, if you can do that, I think maybe I can crack it, right? And so Melanie and I started, and in the beginning, we were just trying to find any old random thing to sell, fridge magnets. We failed on all of them, and would start selling a product, and it would get taken by somebody else, and all this jazz. And so we're like, gosh, we're never going to be able to make this if we don't have our own product, like this headband idea. And so we developed just some technologies that help manufacturers manage their entire e-commerce world, right? So we dove into it from a technology perspective. But our first year, Melanie worked like 18-hour days, and I was working another job. So she jokes sometimes. She's like, so for the first couple of years, your role in the company was give me a call on the way home from work and say, how'd it go today? And that was about it, right? And so, in the early stages, it takes a lot to build a company, I believe. But we did. I'll just give you some numbers. Our first year, we sold $800,000 in just random stuff, and we made pretty much nothing. But we sold a lot of stuff, and now we sold this last year we sold 68 million, and this year we'll sell 120 million. And we're in the top, just on Amazon. We sell all over now, not just Amazon. We sell in Europe and China and everywhere. But on Amazon, we've hit their top 10 list. They've asked us to come and speak at their all-hands events and things like that. And so we have tons of experience there. And when you take a company from like 800,000 to over 100 million, there is a million nightmares, and you want to quit a lot of time. And so if I was to I'll just share a few things that I think have helped. And if you guys probably have a lot of history in your life. My mom, I think, was, my mom always used to tell me that I was like the smartest kid. I didn't realize that there was anyone smarter than me until college. Because my mom had ingrained it in my brain that I was the smartest kid around. Even though I didn't, my grades weren't that great, but I was like, oh, it's just because I don't trust. Because I don't. But anyone else doing that out there? Thank you for owning it. Good job. Where you're like, oh yeah, I know I could ace this if I actually tried, but I don't. So my mom had it in my mind that I remember I was like this fourth grader, and she told me I was the fastest kid she knew too, and I was like lining up against the 4th, 5th, and 6th graders on this race around the field, and I was like, of course I'm going to win this. Because my mom has told me I am just the fastest kid around, right? I don't know if you're, so I think when it comes to business, you have to approach it a little bit as though if somebody else can do it, then why not you, right? Because if somebody else because if you look at every company out there, if somebody else built it, then why couldn't you do the same thing, right? And we always look at it and we're like, oh, Jeff Bezos, and they've built these empires, and yeah, they have, but they started somewhere, and so now's the time, and there's always opportunity out there, so get started. Confidence, I think, is a big piece of it, right? So I would always approach it, if anybody can do it, then why not you guys? And then another piece is, how many of you guys like to compete on something? I've always sort of thought, like, when you make it to heaven, if there's no competition and everyone is just as good at everything, I'm like, that's a real letdown, right? Because if I'm playing ping pong and the other guy's just as good and no one ever wins, then this is boring. But one of the things that I think you need to have a little bit if you want to get out there in that business world is you have to sort of like to compete, right? If you don't like to compete, then I think maybe you should just forget it, to some degree. Of course, I'm just sharing my own. These are just the Gospel of Dave here. And then if you like to compete, I remember just as a kid, I used to work on this farm, the Bangater farm. And we would pick radishes and we would wrap them up. And whoever wrapped the most radishes from after school till 7 at night got 2 cans of pop. I was like, 2 cans of pop? I don't know if I really cared about the pop or not, but I really wanted to pick the most radishes. And so the bell would ring at school, and I had this set up with my mom, and I would run the entire way home. And if my mom wasn't totally ready to go right then, I was super upset because she had to drive me over to the farm because there were some kids there that were just faster than me. No matter how fast I tried to make my hands go, they would beat me. So if I didn't get at least a 10 or 15 minute head start, I could not win the 2 cans of pop, right? And so I did that for months and months, and it never really got that boring. I don't know why. And so I think as you guys sort of analyze what makes you tick, if you like to win and you like to compete, then I think you can be super successful in business. Okay, so there's a few things. I'm going to move this so I can actually sit down. And I'm just going to start asking a few questions to you guys. If you guys were to say, I started thinking about how you have to be motivated to run a business. And because Mel and I had several conversations, we're like, what has made this thing work, actually? And there's been things that we've talked about over the years that we think are the common theme. And we see businesses come and go, and we started to look at what are the main things that drive. Okay, and one of them is the things that we pulled this just from a guy who won the Nobel Prize in writing. He says here's the 4 areas we think drive. Okay, one is acquiring money or things. Okay, so you can write that down. And tell me which of these think primarily drives you. No one's ever going to have one, right? Acquiring money or things you like to acquire. Okay, power. Fame or vanity. So you like to look good, you like to, be in front of people, all those types of things, right? Or love. We think those are the 4 main motivators of, why people do stuff, right? So if you were to look at that, how many of you would put, this is, sometimes people don't like to admit these things, but acquiring money or things, you would say that probably is the thing. As you look at your life, what are you doing every day? And is that at the top of your list? How many says that's probably at the top of my list? Okay. How about power? Way to go. By the way, they say that the driver for most important men in society, power is the driver. The people who change the world generally, and it's not a bad thing, right? They're just driven by that. And they create a lot of amazing businesses too. How about fame or vanity? Okay, good. Love. Okay, so it looks like, I think you have to take love off of the list when we're doing this comparison here, because I think everyone will be driven by love, but I think it's a different piece of your life, right? What we've noticed in business is we see so many businesses where it's largely driven by fame or vanity or ego, and as soon as you get that into the mix, we see them across the board. There are 750,000, we'll just give you this example, 750 other professional level Amazon sellers, and somehow we're in like the top 5, right? So we sit there and we go, what's the sauce, right? And I think one of the big killers is just, as soon as you want to make it, one of the big things I think to realize in business is it just, no matter how much you think it's about what you've done, it isn't. Executives and leadership people kill businesses they can never build a business by themselves, but they can kill it, right? So leaders can never really build anything by themselves, but they can destroy it. So, as soon as you get ego in there, generally we see that a lot of our competitors, as we look at it, that's what they're doing, is they're just letting ego get into a lot of the ways that they operate, and it's just destroying things. And in order to run a business, what do you have to have? If you guys were to look at this, how do you measure success for a business? What's the key measurement of success in a business? Profit, right? Money. If you don't have it, will you be around next year? So if you want to survive as a business or a nonprofit or anything else, even nonprofits, what do they have to make to be around next year? Money, or else they're irrelevant, right? And so when you're making decisions, your decisions need to be around, can this idea actually make money, right? And if you see a path towards an idea where you're like, this idea can make money, or maybe this sounds like a really fun thing. If it sounds like a really fun thing, you're like, okay, it's really fun. Can I take this thing that I think is really fun, and can I turn it into something that will make money, right? Because if it can't, then you won't be around next year. So that's one of the big pieces that we see so many businesses that seem to make decisions around other things. And if you want to be around next year, you have to make decisions. Sometimes they're hard decisions around making money, right? Okay. Now, if you're in the early stages of a business, one thing that I think is a must is it is really tough to do it by yourself. It seems really appealing because you're like, then I'll get the whole pie for myself, right? And if I bring in partners, then I have to share, right? And so oftentimes people try to start up the whole thing and do it on their own. And what do you see normally happening with that? I don't know if you guys have tried it. That's right. Who said that? That's exactly right. You get burnt out and just quit. Mel and I, if I wouldn't have started this with Mel back there, we would have quit this a million times. There's no way I would have done it. And I think she would have quit as well. Because you just, you need to be able to call someone and be like, hey, this went terrible. What do we do? And at different points, you got to hold each other together. And I think it's generally good if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, right? Where you have a group of people where you're like, hey, let's do this together. I think for initial parts of businesses, I don't hear of very many businesses that got started with one guy. I don't know if you guys know of any, but the really big successful ones, as you look back on almost all of them, they start them with people. So like for your cleaning business, to take that to the next level, if you said, hey, let's pull in 5 people, and let's say, let's start a cleaning business together, we're all going to share this 20-20-20 or whatever, what can we do to move this to the next level? I believe that likely there's a good chance that your 20% becomes a lot bigger than it can be on your own, right? So working together with somebody, starting it as a... Okay. And then another piece. When you're choosing your group, I think there's one piece that you have to have. Somebody in the group has to be able to... Any ideas? What? Lead? Okay, that's good. Not what I was thinking, but you guys are probably going to come up with a lot of good ideas. Manage money? Yes, not what I was thinking. That's awesome. You guys are coming up with some good ones. That's also not what I'm thinking. Anyone else wants to guess what's in my mind? Yeah. That's awesome. Not yet. You're getting close. Yes. That's it. At least that's the one that's in my mind. Right? All those were good. Is somebody in the group has to be able to sell. Right? Because no matter what you do, whether you're offering a service or a cleaning thing or whatever, you have to what? You have to sell it. And most companies, when they get out there, a lot of people can operate a company and manage the money well and choose the strategy and all that stuff, as long as there's some guy who's bringing in the sale, right? Don't you think most of you, somebody just said, hey, by the way, we've got a great way to sell 50,000 units of this thing a year. Do you think you can manage it? There's a lot of people, I think, who can do that. And so when you're choosing your group, no matter what you're doing, make sure there's somebody on that team who can sell. How do you know somebody can sell? What's some of the traits you look for in people who can sell? You know how to speak well? Okay. Confidence? Yeah? Yeah, all those are good. They got a hot girlfriend, okay? Maybe. That actually might be someone. Friendly? Ooh, that's a really good one. There was one other hand. I'm just going to give a few traits I think, yeah. Charisma? Likeable? Okay, I think selling is interesting because you get like people who I think are super charismatic. Because as we've been hiring salespeople and working through this process, sometimes these guys who come in and they're super charismatic and you're like, this guy could sell. When the results come in, he's not selling. You're like, what's wrong? He gets along really well with people. He connects with people. Good. Yeah. If I were to pick a couple things, when you guys are building your teams out there on people who can sell, is find someone, the people who I think sell the best are experts. I think here's some minimum bar stuff, right? If you go to buy a car from some guy, no matter how charismatic and all that stuff is, who do you really want at the end of the day? You want the guy who knows more about this car than that car and can explain all the features and all the benefits and all the, the industry and everything else, right? So if your sales guy isn't somebody who goes deep and tries to help figure out, how does this whole thing work, I don't think they can ever sell. Well, they can sell it, like pest control, right? That's just a matter of who can knock the most doors. And even pest control, though, I mean, if you're selling pest control and you know the most about all the bugs and all the... Actually, I'm trying to think of a scenario where that expert piece does not almost outsell all the charisma there is, right? So you have to find that sales guy who has that ability to go deep enough to understand what you're doing and be able to understand the entire industry and be that smartest guy in the room. But yet they can't come across as the smartest guy in the room. Somehow you got to figure that out, right? Because what do you oftentimes have with experts? They want everyone to know they are the smartest guy in the room. And they don't want to leave until everyone sort of acknowledges that, right? And that doesn't really sell either. So if you can blend this concept of someone who's an expert with a little bit of humility, I think, and then of course they have to do, you mentioned follow-up, right? I think if you can do that with some phenomenal follow-up, I think follow-up outsells most charisma as well. Okay? But I think if you're going to start a business and you don't have somebody on that team who can sell, you're dead. Matter of fact, we were talking to some venture capital people about putting some funding into our business. We never take advantage to do it so far all completely on our own. And the guy was like, I only have one question. What's that? Like, sales. Like, at the time, I hadn't sort of caught on to this whole thing. And he was like, I'm like, well, it's just, I said, I'm sort of doing it on my own right now, and blah, blah. And he's like, there's only one thing that really matters, and that is someone in your town. And then he told me, now, if you're thinking about careers, he goes, if your sales guy isn't making $400,000 a year or more, I'm not interested. Right? He's like, if you can find someone who has that ability to go deep, learn how to sell, become an expert in that world, he goes, they're invaluable. Can't pay them enough. Right? So, good career path and you might not think you're a great salesman, and that actually might mean you are. Right? If you're like, I don't really feel like I'm the salesy type, that means you might actually be really good at it. Right? If you can go deep, if you can follow up, if you can become an expert and not come across as a jerk, you're golden. Right? So that's really important. And then one of the other things that you mentioned from just a business strategy perspective, as soon as you get a team of people together, which you're going to do when you start your business, right? Get this team together. Guess what you'll start doing? You'll start coming up with a lot of ideas. And guess what? They're all going to be pretty good. They're like, you're in a meeting, you're like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. That's a good idea. And pretty soon, you have a lot of good ideas. So now you get to that point where you're like, you just have to start figuring out what to say no to. Right? Like if we want to become a cleaning company, then we're not going to wash, we're not going to do laundry. Right? We're going to do this. And if we come up with another idea, now I think you can expand, but you have to become one of the best at a thing, and then you can expand out on it, right? Because you got to say no to a lot of stuff. Drive it. Okay. All right. I'll walk you through just a little bit more about what we do. But anyway, before I do that, any questions on all of that stuff? We vet and yeah. I went to, our sales guy is a guy named Steve Ellis, and we stole him out of Oracle Corporation. And he led the team for Oracle that was #1 in the West, and then the next year #1 in North America. And we pay him a truckload. And if he says he wants more, we're like, okay. So that is that is a super key. I think there's some roles you just can't go short on. Any other questions? Yeah. We didn't have what? We didn't then. And then we weren't terribly successful either. We were just doing what everyone else does, and you go out there, and this still is a pretty successful way to do business, right? We just decided, hey, let's go find products that we can buy for cheap, sell for more, right? And Amazon is a cool platform. If you guys want to dive into that, if you have some products you can buy for more, then you can do well. And then from there, you have to be more strategic. There's 750,000 people out there who, right? So for us, the differentiator has been technology. Luckily, that's my, the thing that started it for us is tell this story was, our company was essentially built because Melanie had uncompromising integrity. We started out in, we did fridge magnets, we did all that stuff, and then we got some shoe insoles, like Dr. whatever, like, what were they called? Like Power Step. So we got these little shoe insoles, and they had this thing called MAP price. Ever heard of that? The minimum advertised price, which means no one's allowed to sell below that price. So we're like, cool, we're all going to make money. And so we buy a bunch of them, and we put them out there on Amazon, and we're like, oh, wait, everyone else is selling below the price. And they're like, don't worry, we'll fix it. That's what the manufacturer did. And so Mel and I, we leave our price really high, and everyone, we didn't sell. We bought like, I don't know how many hundreds of them, and we didn't even sold like one. So Mel calls up, and she's like, hey, what's going on? You guys going to fix this problem? And they're like, yeah, don't worry, it's going to be fixed. Another 3 months goes by, nothing happens. Another 3 months goes by, nothing happens. And so I'm like, Mel, we got to sell these things. So we probably ought to, but she signed a paper saying that we wouldn't sell below the pricing. So of course she's like, no way. And I was the same way. But I said, we bought it from a distributor. We didn't buy it from Power Step. We bought it from a company called Milliken Medical, right? So we call up Milliken Medical, and we're like, hey, can we break the pricing on this? Milliken's like, yeah, go ahead. And Melanie's like, I don't think they have the power to do that, right? Manufacturer is the one who has the agreement, and we bought it from this middleman, and the middleman's like, yeah, go ahead, right? And so it put us into a weird spot. And Mel was like, I'll buy them all back myself with my own money. And I was like, I secretly sort of wanted to just sell them, right? I'm like, let's just sell them and be done with it. And she was like, no, I think I signed my name on this thing, even though the people we bought them from told us to go ahead, because I just don't feel good about it, right? And I was like, okay. Then I started thinking, I'm like, not that they don't want to solve this problem, they just don't know how. And so now we've built technology, and now our technology actually monitors pricing across 5,000 different websites. And so we know the price of every, if we partner with the manufacturer, we come in and we say, here's your pricing across 5,000 sites, here's where it all is, and we partner with law firms to go in and help clean all that stuff up, and it's become a big basis of success. So I don't know if all companies turn out that way, but in our case, sticking to some principles, just on an integrity level, was the piece that made us successful. I'm not sure if I answered that, your question. But there's a lot of niches out there that you can dive into with regards to, again, as long as you can come up with a service that someone can sell, you can be successful. And it seems like, I'm not sure if this is always the case, but it seems like the sales guys are not generally the guys who come up with a lot of the strategy and the. They're just like, tell me what to go sell. Now, I don't know if that's always the case. It's just been my experience. And so that's why I say when you're starting a partner, you might be that guy who's like, I'm always seeing, I go to the store and I'm like, why aren't there one of these available, right? Or one of these, like I'm sick of the lines at Cafe Rio, right? Who's not sick of the lines at Cafe Rio? Who has not thought of starting a business like Cafe Rio? Because that would be a great idea. Because obviously it seems to be working for them. And so I was telling my son last night, because he's at college, University of Arizona, and like, I had this idea today. I'm like, I want to put a billboard up and like have a, offer $50,000 for someone to come up with the best Mexican restaurant recipes, and whoever comes up with the best ones, we just hire them and start a restaurant, right? Or whatever. So I think there's a ton of ideas out there. You just have to find a way to sell, right? And the sell landscape is changing, because now when you're selling, you're not always just face to face. It's now advertising, social media, and Facebook, and all that stuff. So the guys who were super successful at sales, that landscape is shifting. All right, any other questions so far? Okay. All right, lastly, I only got about 10 minutes, it looks like. What do I recommend for you guys if I were to do this over again? A few things are like super obvious, because I interview people all the time. There's a few things I think you really got to change how you do. How many years have you spent on school so far? How many? I'm trying to figure out, I don't even know, like 14 maybe or something? No. At least 12, right? Probably more like 14. So you're 14 years into this. And when you're all done, you're going out to get a job, because generally you'll get a job somewhere and you'll be working on something in your job, and it'd be great if we could all just go and start businesses and we had the money to not have to provide for our families and all that stuff, but generally that's not, right? So probably you're going to have to go get a job, and then these ideas come to you and you do it in the evenings and all that, right? What I see all the time is people spend 14 years in school, and how much time have you guys spent on your resume? 2 hours. And when you go get a job, you only give them one piece of paper. It's the resume, right? And then it has like all these errors in it. You're like, and the writing, I'm a writing nut, and you have to be when you start, when you have business and you're like, hey, I want you interacting with partners and customers, and you can't even write on your resume, and we just talk about it, right? So if we find errors in resumes, we don't even care, because there's 100, right? You're like, oh. And I'm always sort of surprised if there was one thing I think if I had to go back and do, and it's a pain in the butt. No one wants to do this job, right? No one wants to actually like really sit down and make sure their resume is awesome. But you should see some of these resumes that some of these guys make, the way they pitch themselves and they put a little design into it. Maybe they pay someone, what if you happen to pay someone $20,000 to help you with your resume? You're still better off than school, right? No one will ever pay someone $20,000 for a resume, but the point is, even if you hired somebody to help you with your resume, it is the only piece of paper you actually pass on in your next, phase. And when we're going through, candidates, of course, we're just looking at that, right? So that piece. Another thing is if I were to go back to college again, I would have tried. I was always super business minded, and I always had these ideas and I wanted to do them, but I never did. And I think had I tried a few of the other ones out, I could have been like 20 years. Because a lot of you guys could run companies really well. How many of you have tried a business so far with more than yourself? Way to go, guys. So you three. So those who are taking the time to run a business with more than just themselves, I think that's the key to starting early. Because you'll learn. What have you learned? Are you still doing it? Yeah, so that's actually a great, that might have been, you might have just had the wrong people on the team, right? If you're in a scenario where you're arguing a lot, which happens, I think, more often than not, you're like, we maybe just need to reset and start over. What about you? Still going? No. You're still going? Oh, you have many going. Okay, good. Generally, when people are working on them together, they're still going. I think as you guys are, if there was something I wish I could start over and do, it's after I graduated, I think you have to focus on school. I think you have to get good grades. You have to focus on that. You have to get a job before you get too sidetracked, which is what you guys are all doing. But not too far after that, I think just say, hey, let's try this. Now, school's a good time to start networking and building that team, right? Where you're like, you know what? That guy I know he can sell. That guy I know is a genius on technology, and he can build us a program to help manage stuff or whatever. You start putting your dream team together now. Mel, do you have any good advice? I know I'm putting you on the spot. Covered it? What's that? Okay. All right. So lastly, and I think this is just what I'll close with is when you're trying to, if you're in a group, you're in a setting with somebody, this will help you out. Whether you're doing a business, there is when you're working on, let's say you're working on a group project or something. What is something that if you're deciding, hey, who performed really well in this group? What I usually find is it's generally the guy who communicates the most and the fastest. Right? He might not be doing all the work, but group email goes out and says, hey guys, what about this? There's this perception that the guy who's like on his email is like, hey, I'll get that done, I'll have that to you on Friday. And he is his word, right? That automatically is like, is confident. So if you're in a business where you have to work with someone else, right? Partners or coworkers, or even if you're on a project, one of the things, just I think as a tidbit, I'm in the middle of a transaction right now, and it's a pretty big transaction, and the CEO of that company responds in like 10 minutes, it seems like all the time. So guess what I think of him? I'm like, this guy, super on his game. Amazing CEO. I think, matter of fact, he's fast at email, and I've already chalked him up in my mind to amazing CEO. And I think you guys will find generally in life that that's also the case, so just that, just the follow-up. If you can do that quickly in your interactions, then people automatically assume, for right or for wrong, usually I think it is, that you must have the rest of your life all together. So just a few tidbits. Any other questions before I close? Heber and I worked at the LDS church for years and years and years. And at the time, I think what technologies doesn't matter too much to me. We generally go for cheap. So if it's open source, if it's, Ruby, if it's all of those types of things, then small businesses thrive on that. Small businesses generally aren't going to go buy Oracle, right? You're not going to want to drop $40,000 of processor on Oracle. And at this point, nor will I ever, right? And so I would look at the technologies that are make it inexpensive for companies to run. Focus a lot of your time there. That helps the small business. Now, there's a lot of large businesses, but I think the large businesses will be shifting. Anyone who's not in a cloud direction, think, right? We don't have a single piece of hardware anywhere, and we run tons of technology, and it's all, AWS. Great question. Anything else? Guys, thanks so much for having me.
We